Summit, guys. We have a great day for us, everyone, today. We've got about 30 plus speakers talking about the shared services sector in Central Europe. Just give you a couple of quick feedback or background to what we're doing today. We're doing this because we found that with all of the physical events being canceled all around us, it was ABSL postponed, SSON postponed, Aspire Krakow postponed. There was a bit of a vacuum for in the shared services sector for Central Europe, and this chance we had to create this event with the Hopin platform is really, really wonderful. So you're in for a really interesting day today, both with the speakers and the Hopin platform. But before we talk more about the Hopin platform and some of the technical details, I just wanted to say thanks to the tremendous support that we've got here from our various supporters. We've got support from the Hungarian Outsourcing Association, thanks to Balázs and Richard for that. We have support from ABSL Czech Republic, for Joe Appleton, again, thank you for the support there. We have support from Aspire down in Krakow, Andrew, and Katya, and the city of Poznan is also one of our supporting, let's say, members of this event. Thanks again for all of you guys for both watching and being part of this today and taking part in this really pioneering effort. We're going to make some mistakes today, we're going to break new ground today, but it actually is going to be very, very good. And I also wanted to say thanks to the sponsors as well, who have been keen to support it. Our sponsors today are the Location Perspectives, it's Cushman & Wakefield, it's Newark Offices, it's CEMA, it's ActiveGraph, Bpo Property, and European Business Services Association. Let me go through a couple of technical things and we're going to get started in just 2 minutes. This event is taking place on the Hopin platform, so if you are registered, if you are going to take part, you need to be on the Hopin platform, of course, and be set up. We have a team of about 11 to 12 people. And the way it's going to work is we have the main stage. Right now, this is the main stage, and throughout the day, we've got about a number of speakers on this main stage. Because it's a digital event, what we also have going on are breakout sessions throughout the day. So in 5 minutes, we'll start with the main stage, Romek Lubaczewski from PWC, but at the same time, we will have the Japan BSC breakout session as well, with 4 of the major Japanese companies operating SSCs here in Central Europe. So you'll need to be checking back and forth, and you'll be able to jump back and forth between the main stage and the sessions, the networking, etc. A couple more things that I think very important and interesting about the Hopin platform. We have networking sessions today for 2 times for 30 minutes. 3 times for 30 minutes. So at 10:30 this morning, 10:30 to 11, at 12:30 for half an hour, and at 2:45 till 3:15. And that's a wonderful way that you can meet someone else that's attending the event today. So for example, it'll be 3 minutes on like a speed dating. So I really encourage you to take part in that. A nice way to meet new people, which is very rare these days in this lockdown environment. We also have a cool function that on the Hopin platform of information booths, so-called virtual booths. And this is a great way to get more information about a particular company. You can have a live meeting with companies that are in the live booths, or see the streaming videos from those. So that's also worth some couple minutes of your time to take a look at that. And also I wanted just to simply say that while many of you are actually on the Hopin platform and taking part fully in the event, for those few of you who just want to watch, this will be streaming all day live on Facebook and on the YouTube. For those of you who don't need to or don't want to meet other people, you can simply just watch during the day. And that's all I'm going to say now. I want to invite Mike in for 1 second. Mike, please join us. Mike is running the technical side of Hopin platform, as well as come in a little bit closer.
Here we go. Hi everybody, nice to...
We're skipping the virtual, the social distancing. Yes.
Hi everybody, very nice to see you all today, and very happy to be supporting Tom and CEE Business Media in their first ever virtual event. We were in the same boat at the end of March, so typically our event is an in-person event in Warsaw. We were forced to go fully online, managed to pull that off within 8 days of the conference, and now we're assisting third-party clients in hosting their virtual offerings. So great. Very happy and looking forward to the day ahead.
Great, thanks Mike, and thanks to all the team here. Wonderful, we'll come back to that a bit later. Super. Cool, we're good, thank you. So without further ado, we're on. So I want to introduce Romek Lubaczewski, who is of course not here, but is here. So Romek, if you are on now, our technical guys will switch the screens, and we'll be back with you in about 25 minutes, 30 minutes. Romek, over to you.
Immediately one thing with you. This is the third time I've had a shirt on in I think 10 weeks, and every time it's for Tom. So this is for you, Tom, to wear a shirt and look a little bit smarter. I've got 20 minutes. What I'd like to do is go through what I'm hearing in the market, and I'm going to share with you 3 dimensions. I'm going to share with you what I'm hearing right now and what I've heard in the last few weeks and what I think is going to happen until roughly July. Then the next area, which I think is what I'm going to call soon. So I've got now and soon for me is really to the end of the year, so July to December. And then later for me is next year, calendar year. I'm going to talk to you in those 3 areas. I'm going to go to my screen and share with you. I'm a consultant, so I have to have a slide, otherwise I feel uncomfortable. I'm feeling more comfortable, I've got a slide. Okay, so the promise of new work and reality. This is probably the biggest thing I've been hearing pretty much since day 1 of lockdown. In that first month, 4, 5, 6 weeks, what I've been hearing is this is fantastic. There's more work coming. GBS, shared services, BPO is going to have a boom time right now. It's work's coming down the pipe. Get ready, and just a massive view of, you know, this is a big deal. What I've heard really in the last 4 weeks and coming down to yesterday, a call with the centre, is quite a big change in that view. So although the bosses and press and articles are still being written about the fact that this is the time for GBS and shared services, what I'm actually hearing now is much more around no new work right now, but later we'll be sending more work. And then even a bigger change is I'm hearing more and more headquarters starting to ask general managers, I need to save money. So we've got quite a big shift there from the near term, from this is about to go boomtown to wait a minute, it's not boomtown, and in fact, can you share me some? Give me some money back. So that's on the scope side. On the people side, again, I'm feeling 2 very different things. I've got strong views, and quite a lot of my team are, I can't think of the right words to say, but kind of feeling the pain of being locked in their apartment. So, you know, husband and wife, 2 kids, a dog, a cat, 60 square meter apartment, both of them working, both of them on calls, kids in the background, very difficult to look after the kids. And if they're small, you already do, obviously it's a full-time job. So it's actually extremely difficult to focus and concentrate. So I get that, and so these people are dying to get back to work, fully understand that. And then I've got another group which is actually saying, hey, working from home is quite cool. This isn't so bad. I'm one of them. I love working from home. I love the idea of getting up a little bit later. I love the idea of I don't care about working late. I love the idea if there's a break, I just go in for a walk or do my own thing, and that whole kind of feeling of control of my own day. Interesting fact to share with you is the centre 2 weeks ago ran a survey. So it's quite a large centre, 2,000 person survey, and they asked the question, would you, and if you could, would you continue to work from home? So that was asked of 2,000 people. Normal split age group, average 26, 27. 74% of those people said yes, they could and would continue working from home. For me, that's a really, really massive statistic there. What does that mean? I don't know. I'm going to be thinking about it, but I think you are all as well. On the technology side, what I've been hearing again is AR and robotics. Everyone is talking about robotics, artificial intelligence. This is the answer. Now's the time. It's the perfect opportunity. Virtual means you can do a robot. I don't get that. I'll be honest. I think it's probably the worst time to automate anything. when you've got the 5 people who do the work all sitting together and you try and robotize the process, fair enough. But when all 5 of you are sitting in different places, I find that a little bit tricky to work out how you robotize it. But the idea is that this is the big thing to come in front of us. And then I think technology, where the focus has been in the last 10 weeks, for me, and I'll share, I think most people will agree with me here, is getting the virtual to work. So an example here would be literally last week, I had 4 calls in a row, and one of them was on Zoom, one on Teams, one on Hangouts, and one was on Skype. And pretty much on every call, different slide screen. I'll be honest, some of them worked a bit better than others. I don't know if that was to do with the internet connection. I don't know. The reality was they all work slightly differently. And the trick, I think, has been to make work successful and get that virtual step. I think that has been the big play, and the IT teams have been, technology side has been working extremely hard to get that to work effectively. When we look at the GBS model as a whole, definitely two angles here. One is, let's bring it all back home. I saw tons of press in the early days, particularly out of the US. I personally think that was driven somewhat by India having some problems going virtual and working from home. There were issues with home Wi-Fi accesses, getting PCs to new staff. That was definitely true for a number of my clients. I'll be honest, that lasted 2, 3, max 4 weeks. And I have not seen a fall down in India. I think they've come back, rebounded, and they're back to normal. So that whole bring it back on shore, I think that was a very early day claim. I'm not sure it's still true now. And the other part, which I'm again, tons of press in the last few weeks, lots of people phoning me and sending me emails asking me for commentary, is in the BPO space, where two angles. One is there's this new phrase called Bpo Partnering. So BPO not being, the other guy, but we're doing it together angle. And then the other big thing that I'm hearing tons of is BPO out there looking for acquisitions of centres which are distressed. So companies having problems, 500-person centre, maybe we could sell it to a BPO provider. Or maybe the other side is maybe the BPO provider would actually buy it. So I think slightly different, who's selling and who's buying. That's all where we are right now. So let's think a little bit ahead. So soon into the future, what's the thing? So on scope, I think there'll be some growing and some right sizing. And I think they're 2 different things. And let me go with the right sizing first. I think here we have to bear in mind that some of the delivery centers we've got, some of the GBS models we've got are for industries that, to use the word distressed, is probably a bit light. In other words, they're very seriously going to be distressed for a period of time. And the obvious ones are the airlines, automotive, big parts of financial services. This isn't easy. That these companies are going to have an extremely tough next 2, 3, 4 years. And on that basis, my simple logic is, if your core company is in trouble, why would we not think that the delivery center itself is not going to be impacted by that? If there are less cars being sold and built and made, then why do we need so many people accounting for the sale of a car when there's a lot less of them? Simple, conclusion for me. But honestly, I don't really understand why that would not happen. So I think we've got a number of centres which are going to be right sizing. Simultaneously, though, I think a big thing has happened, which is everything now can be remote. Before, when I was talking to clients about what can you move into GBS, what's possible and what's not possible, there were always the sacred cows of work. No, you can't do that. We have to do that in the office. It has to be in New York, it has to be in Paris, it has to be in London. Well, guys, wakey, the reality is that's not true anymore. We've just proven you can do it from your living room, your bedroom, and your kitchen. You definitely don't need to be in your office. And for me, that's a massive game changer. It can be remote. Loads of things that were previously protected, I believe now will not be protected. So soon, I think, we're going to have our headquarters realizing that lots and lots more can go. So that's a big change, I think. On the people side, here I truly believe that we're going to need less desks. So working from home, WFH, for me is going to be the new normal. The The bit I'm not sure about is if it's probably somewhere like 5% now. I don't believe it's a much higher number in most of our entities. The question is it going to be 50%? And I don't think it is, but I also don't think it's going to be 20%. So it's between those two numbers, and I'm not sure if it's higher or lower, meaning 25 or 45. I'm really not sure yet. The one thing I am sure though, is that there will be a lot more working from home. And I also believe the other big change, is that we're going to have, obviously the markets are going to start picking up. If we believe that first point, which is there's a lot more work coming down the pipe, then the reality is the supply demand side of our people is going to change as well. So if we go up to July, I think we're going to see shrinkage, and go July onwards, I think I'm going to start seeing a pickup and definitely a growth and a spurt and quite fast in certain areas. And then there's the new skill sets in demand. I think that's something we can't forget about as well. Is it's now going to be sales and marketing and planning and reporting. Lots of things that we didn't do before. Lots of things we did bits of, but not the core. Now we're going to do the core. You know, I said sales. I think we're going to do tons of sales work. So I've got lots and lots of faith here in growth, and in lots of really cool, areas that we weren't doing before, which I like. So on the people side, growth, working from home, and new skill sets. On technology, now I'm going to put the challenge in around RPA and AI. So the now bit, so up until for the next 6 weeks, I'm going to continue to read articles saying RPA automation is the future. I think soon everyone's going to realize it's like last time, 3-4 years ago, RPA is the number one thing. Well, it's not. I think it will have impact. I just don't think it's the big thing. Where I believe technology will continue to put loads and loads of focus is making work from home better and getting that whole virtual setup. So the call we're on right now, I haven't done one of these. It really seems to be cool. I hope it's working. And I think we're going to see more of this and more effort and energy put into this type of work. So I believe the technology is going to be much more about that remote still, and beyond the short term into the medium. If we look at the model, this is what I think is going to happen in the next 3 months. I think everyone's going to be going, wait a minute. The model we had before, and we've been running for the last 20 years, is actually still the right model. I don't think there's a need to do anything different. I don't think nearshoring, I don't think onshoring is right. I think the model we have now is great. And I think it will prove to be exactly the right model for the future as well. The bit I'm still not quite sure about is BPO. The partnering thing, it just doesn't feel right to me. I used to hear that with the BPO guys in the early days, which is, we'll do this together. Is it work for many of you guys? How many of you actually love your BPO partners? Do you call them your BPO partner in that phrase, or do you just call them a provider? Can they change and truly be partners? That I'm not sure. I'm just not sure. So then we go to the next one, which is further in front. So I'm thinking more now for next year, next calendar year. In terms of workload, what am I going to be seeing and feeling? I'm definitely seeing and feeling more work. So we've gone from, I believe, a slight drop to a view of growth, and now I believe we're going to be seeing some serious growth. And I think all of our centres are going to get a ton of new work, new stuff. Truly believe that's around the corner. What's my guess on this number? If I told you right now, if you're a 500-person centre right now today, I think you're going to drop 50 to 450 to 400 maybe. I think you'll go back very quickly to 500. In the next 3 years, I think you'll grow 50%. So you're going to be going from 500 to 750. And I think that's true of all centres of all shapes and sizes and wherever you are in the world. I don't care if you're in India or Poland. So I see strong growth, big growth, new centres as well, but I actually see the massive growth being in existing centres. So on the people side, if you take that first point, we're seeing growth. Obviously, what I'm seeing now is massive growth in the labour market. Now, do I worry about it? Answer, no. And the reason is, I actually think the world is going to be next year still in free fall. I still think we're going to have very high unemployment numbers. I think we're talking about 15-20% in most European countries. And if we think we've got high unemployment, then why would I be worried about the labour market? I'm not. I truly believe that we're going to be still getting very, very good opportunities in terms of supply and demand. I think the demand side will not outstrip supply because of unemployment. I didn't mention contractors. I'm sorry, I kind of missed them. What in the now phase of contractors, I've already heard in the market many contractors have been let go. I think that's obvious. If you have to lose heads, who are you going to lose? You're going to lose the most expensive guys who are on very short-term contracts. Very clear. What am I going to see here? I actually see a slight change in the model going forward. I think more and more centres will have growth coming out of normal growth as we see it, but the volume and percentage of contractors is going to go up. So if we've got 10% of contractors now, which is I think a good number, I see that at least doubling going long term. So a lot of the growth of the centre, if I'm seeing them go 50% in the next 3 years, I think about half of that growth I'd say is in the contractor area, giving us much more flexibility. But I think there's another element. I think our people will, because they've got used to working from home, they don't want to be anchored, they don't want to be tied down. I think they're going to want to be contractors and not employees. So it's not whether we want them like that, I think that's where we're going to be able to find the people. Technology, I think RPA and AI and automation now is actually moving, and I think I'm going to see some good stuff there, but it is not the magic answer. Got to keep reminding everyone, that isn't what's going to save our industry at all. We don't need saving, would be my number one thing. And the big technology space for me will be simple fact that we're doing lots of new types of work will demand that we're doing new technology around that. But I don't see anything massive happening. Still a big thing about virtual, working from home, and a push in the medium to long term in that area. So what do I see from the GBS model in total? Grow, that's it, the existing footprint. I don't see a need to change it. I do see the fact that it's going to be what we used to call back office and the stuff, you know, back office. Now I'm seeing much more of front office, and I see it all going to real GBS. So the full gamut of global business services, front office, back office. And I do think in this period, we're going to also within BPO, I think there is a new model coming out. I think that the BPO guys are good and are very effective in this space. And to be frank, I think if we really believe we are going to grow 50% in the next 3 or 4 years, then there's a natural space for them. So maybe we start moving the very basic AP and AR stuff that to be frank, we're doing mastered and there's no fat there, it's lean. Maybe we're moving that stuff over to the outsourcer. So I do think the outsourcing market will be growing. In short then, I'm trying to change the screen so I can't do 2 things at once. So my final thoughts, short term is going to be tough. Please do not think you're not going to be impacted. You are. Headquarters are around the corner, phoning you up soon to say, I need some cash back. If you're not impacted at all, give me a call, because I honestly believe everyone will be, and some are going to be hit hard. Some industries are going to have it very. So is it neutral or down in the short term? Medium term, I see some growth. I see the view of the long term being really seriously great. So let's get ready for that. That's a big play, I would say, to everyone. Even though it feels a little bit tough right now, I truly believe short term, 3, 4, 5 months, the market will turn significantly. I see growth, and I see really strong growth. And for me, that would be what I think is the future for our industry. It is magnificent. And don't change the model, guys. Fight to keep your model. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Romek, for your sober insights into the current situation, tinged with quite a lot of optimism for the shared services sector in Central Europe over the medium term and long term. So I think one of the things that stuck out to me in your comments was there'll be a little bit of a drop down now in terms of employment numbers, but a medium term increase of 50% you mentioned in the next couple of years. So quite interesting. We've got a full array of content again. So right now we are still continuing with the Japan session, so you can jump over to the session there if you like, cut me off if you like. Or you can also, right now we're going to transition into the next main stage, which is going to be entitled HQ Calling. And the idea here is to talk a bit about some of the cost savings and the communications coming out of headquarters for SSEs based in Central Europe. We've got Alex Ash from Location Perspectives, who is moderating the session, and our panelist or speaker is Anna Meduna, who is running Miele's Global Services Center, new one in Poland, and she's gearing up and growing and hiring, and I think we'll hear some insights into what they're doing in the middle of this crisis. At the same time, at 9:45, and I won't announce this later, we will have a focus session on the flex office spaces, the new work environment, and the idea of returning to work, how that's going to be done. And so that session will be moderated by Craig Smith of Bpo Partnering, and the speakers are Hubert Abt from New Work Offices and Alexander Sobilski from PWC. So again, full content, rich choices for you. Without further ado, we'll start on with Anna Meduna and Alex Ash, and over to you.
Good morning, everyone, or dzień dobry. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I'm Alex Ash with Location Perspectives. A few quick words about myself before we kick off this morning's panel session here in the plenary. So I've spent the last 15 years or so advising international companies on their talent, location and real estate footprints, spending much of that time actually in the business services space. And on a personal note, I've just reshored myself back from the US, from San Francisco, back to the UK. I was previously with Deloitte Consulting Strategy and Operation Practice in San Francisco before joining Location Perspectives. I also have the pleasure of being your moderator for this panel session this morning. HQ Calling, what are the key messages emanating from corporate headquarters? And I also have Anna Meduna here with me, and I will allow Anna to introduce herself in a moment, but I'd just like to make a few opening remarks, if I may. So this week, I feel like I've been breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief. The reason for that is I feel like the adrenaline levels have dropped a few notches after more or less 8 or 9 weeks of pretty much constant hypervigilance and awareness. Perhaps my adrenaline levels dropping have something to do with a few breadcrumbs of good news we've received on the health front, notably with news of Moderna's vaccination research producing some potentially promising early results. And then also what I think we're collectively seeing is a little bit of a flattening of the trajectory of mortality rates across most countries. But while I think the pandemic from a health perspective may be subsiding, at least the worst of it, I can't really say the same for the infodemic that appears to be raging and intensifying all around us. Pretty much looks like everywhere you look, airwaves, cyber waves, there's all sorts of statistics, opinions, speculations, and predictions. And I have to say, I'm not immune from these. I'm consuming content like never before, webinars, virtual summits, all sorts, trying to make sense of, what's happening, what's just happened, and what's coming down the pipe. Strange thing is, the more content I consume, the less certain I become of what the future holds. And I'm only really certain of one certainty, and that's that there's going to be a great deal more uncertainty to come. I guess a little example of this in microcosm is, I don't know how many of you have been paying attention to the array of economic predictions and projections that have been flying around. But just one example, inflation. If you're boring like me and interested in things like inflation and deflation and stagflation, there's one school of thought around inflation which says that the unprecedented government borrowing, QE or quantitative easing, and the printing of money are going to lead to Weimar Republic levels of hyperinflation, which could in turn lead to the end of currencies as we know them and a flight to Bitcoin and gold. So that's one side of the coin, literally. And then on the other side of the coin, we hear that dampening demand for goods and services across the economy are going to depress prices and wages, indicating a move towards deflation. So which is it? Maybe it's both, and I'm not going to make a prediction as to which will be right in the future. But my head's been combusting with all this information, and not least because I've been trying my best as a parent to do homeschooling for the last 8 weeks or so. But I come back to one of my favorite luminaries, which is the man on your screen, Albert Einstein. And one of the many famous things he said is, "I never think of the future, it comes soon enough." It also reminds me, when I think of the economists making these predictions, about economics being referred to as the dismal science. Which brings me in a very roundabout way to the topic of this first panel discussion: headquarters calling, and what are the key messages emanating from headquarters. And I think it's safe to say, as the COVID crisis has evolved and unfolded, the questions, messages, and requests from headquarters will have evolved as well. And as we move, hopefully, from a period of crisis response and sort of firefighting to crisis recovery, the questions, messages, and requests that you all are receiving from your corporate headquarters will evolve again, likely moving from more tactical, such as, how do we keep the lights on? How do we make sure everyone's safe? To more strategic, how can we build greater structural resilience into our network and infrastructure? What's our future shoring strategy? How can we cut costs, accelerate automation? Will there be robotic arbitrage, which is a new concept that I've become familiar with in recent weeks? And how will we, very broadly, do more with less resources in the business services sector? Trying to stay ahead or scenario plan and anticipating what's coming is going to be key, but planning and anticipating are not the same as predicting and speculating. So with that in mind, I'm going to introduce our expert panelist, Anna, and I'm going to ask her shortly, after she's introduced herself, to talk about the past and perhaps make some predictions about the future relationship with corporate HQ. So with that, Anna, would you mind introducing yourself, please? Anna, is your volume working?
Yeah, maybe we can try now. I
There
think
we go.
Okay, good. So, dzień dobry, good morning. It's putting you on mute. It's always a danger, then you forget to unmute yourself, yeah? So maybe good morning to everyone, dzień dobry. It's nice to have a big gremium of people. It's a change after that what we had so far, right? So weeks of isolation, and now having a chance to see more people, even in digital way. Maybe the short intro, Anna Meduna, and from the background, I'm working in the sector of business services for more than 18 years. And it is interesting story because I started in the shared service center as such. So it was my first steps there. Then I moved to the outsourcing. So, over the fence, and I've seen how the people and how the different approach was there compared to the SSCs 20 years back. And being there as a consultant, advisor, but as well as a real manager working with people doing transitions, I think I've learned so much that I decided, okay, and I'm going back to SSE itself to see how much of that I can use, you know, in my real life, and how many of the experiences I can just transfer to the company. Nowadays, I'm in the position of the managing director of the newly set up shared service center in Poznan. So we are a newcomer, and frankly, we haven't promoted us yet that much. So it might be the first real promotion today of our shared service center. It's Miele Global Services, and this is now, I think, the first part of if we are known enough or not yet, that the pronunciation of the name, it's Miele, right? And it's really a German-based company, so that's why. Even though in Poland we say Miele, yeah. So we still have some work to be done so that we are really recognized here as a brand and as well as a shared service center.
Great, thank you very much for that introduction, Anna. I think where I'd really like to start is just learning a little bit more about Miele's story, not going back 100 years or so to when
Yeah,
when the country was founded.
121.
Sorry, 121. That stood the test of time.
Yeah.
But more just to understand a little bit how you came to arrive in Poznan, and also, I mean, because if I'm not mistaken, the sort of the publicity, if you like, around that pretty much just preceded the crisis unfolding. So great to hear about how you arrived in Poznan, and then how things have evolved, I guess, through the crisis as you think about setting up your center.
Yes. So maybe first of all, Miele is really the company where we think in kind of decades. Yeah. So it's in terms of generations. So, it took some time until decision was made to move to the shared service center setup and the business. And while doing the decision, and the research where to go, is it Poland or is it Romania, or maybe it's Portugal or Spain, because there were these countries really on the agenda and the different cities. There was one main, I would say, aim behind this decision, and the I would say success factor. We decided we need the right people, and this is what the key driver. So it was the cost, of course, like every company is doing, setting up the shared service center, but the talent, I think that was the key for us. And that's why Poland, and that's why Poznan, because as we are starting late, frankly, we are starting big. So we take the whole scope, we really go deeply into that, what we can do from our center, from Poznan, and we would like to have right competences on board. So we don't start with just transactional processes, we really go with the added value and advanced ones too. So this is the I would say the story. And why Poznan? Maybe once we decided for Poland, I think there were two key decisions. One is, I would say, the proximity, and also the Poznan connection to the German market. Miele is a German-based company, and it's so much easier to work with the culture, right? So it was such a kind of good storytelling also to the people at the company, to say, okay, it would be someone someone close by, that you find the culture really coherent, yeah. So it fits. And the other topic is the language. Yeah, we have so much of language, so many language possibilities here, and 130,000 students there in Poznan. I think it's impressive. If you think about the headquarters for Miele, it's Gütersloh, and there are 100,000 inhabitants there, and we have more students than they have inhabitants. Yeah, that's powerful.
Absolutely, and just you mentioned large in scope, presumably significant headcount will be deployed. How have those plans altered, if at all, because of the crisis?
I think it was really not the perfect timing for us, if you can imagine. Yeah, we started the recruiting process, and then immediately after 2 months, okay, the crisis came. And I think the real challenge is that we are on our way. We are on the way doing transitions, and we were planning to go to the countries, build relationship, and take the scope to us and work with that. How would you do that now, right? With all the flights canceled, the borders closed, not that easy. On the other hand, I must say in this sector, and I think no one here is surprised, we were so fast to move to the remote work. It was really a day's time. When I see the other sectors or even the other parts of Miele, it took longer. But for SSC, it's so natural. For business services, you just take your laptop and work from home. Yeah, and it's because of the services we do. That's one thing. It helps us, right? But kind of way of thinking and way of working, and also for our people we have hired so far, we hired, the experienced people. That was a piece of cake. Yeah, they did it before. They know how to do it. So I think the challenge with this kind of travel ban, we overcame really fast, and we just switched to the remote working, and we keep on doing transitions in full remote mode, fully. Yeah, working. Okay, it could work better if you have a relationship to the people, if you sit next to someone's desk, but still it flies. The other aspect is that we are just starting. We just moved to the new space, and we in the middle of the crisis, we had to move us there. And I think this is the impact, because if you ask the headquarter messages I was seeing, and it's not only for us but for the whole sector, it was, remember your cash flow. Yeah, be really kind of strong in saying what you really need and what is some spend you can postpone. And with this cash flow limitation, that's a challenge to set up the new office, right? So the first message to us was, okay, we all, and it was not only for the business services, not only for us as a shared service center, just remember about your spend. Yeah, we need to really see what is coming, and limit whatever you are buying to that what is really, really needed, and to not buy for the future. And on the other hand, we are a premium brand. Yeah, so we just don't do things like, we just see how it's working and we take the right decisions. We just don't be kind of eager to do anything just to do it. Yeah, so I would say our first weeks were 2 weeks were just freeze. Yeah, like in this kind of situations, freeze and see what's happening. Yeah, on the market, how our customers are impacted, what's happening on their side. Is the business growing or is the business totally down? Just to observe. And the freeze meant for us no recruitment for the time being, just wait, and no really additional spend. So just focus on that what you really, really need, and see what is happening. Then you have two options normally in your life. You can run or fight. Yeah, so we chose fight, meaning we decided, okay, even though it is going to be a new and the situation would change and some of the countries and our sales entities would be impacted, we keep on doing what we decided before, because we believe the shared service center is the right decision. And it's, I would say, kind of proactive move to be ready for that what is coming, and even for the crisis. And if you ask me also from my previous experience, 2007, 2008, in outsourcing, we've seen that was the time when many companies decided to go for outsourcing, to do the shared service center, because that was the I would say, the threat which you can use as opportunity to change the whole business, and look for the cost cutting, but maybe more for efficiency for your business.
No, that's great. I mean, you hit on some really key points there. You mentioned restrictions around cash flow and expenditure. You mentioned recruitment freezes, and that's something we've heard a lot about across the sector. Although there have been cases, I can think of John Deere as well, one of your neighbours in Poznan, as an example, that managed to continue to recruit strategically to their center throughout the freeze, so they got a special exception. But obviously, this is not an ideal time for you to build your brand in the market. But at the same time, at least what I'm seeing is that companies who are able to frame their brand positively through this situation are going to prosper in the future. So it's really interesting times. Just to kind of come back to how things have evolved over time. So cast your mind back to early March, which feels like a long time ago now. What were the top 3 messages that you were getting from corporate HQ, and then how was that? What are you hearing now? I mean, you've mentioned some things around cash flow. Was the immediate response, okay, cut spend? Or was the immediate response, keep the lights on, make sure everyone's safe? Or was it everything? And just how things evolved over time?
Yeah, I think there were 3 messages. It was like a people message. I will just elaborate on. There was a cash flow message, and of course the spend and the project message. Let's call it this way. So there was a people message, meaning how do we secure our people? How do we ensure they are safe? Because, and I think this has 2 sides of the coin. One side is in general in the company, but also in our sector. And as you said about the recruitment, maybe I will just build on that. Yes, many companies stopped for a week or 2, but what I see now, almost every SSC is recruiting back. Yeah. Okay. So it was like a freeze for 1 or 2 weeks, and then everyone decided, yes, this is the right direction. We keep on going this way. And the other topic is for us, the people in business services, this crisis was not that impactful yet. Yeah, but because it's the talent, you really think about for the future. If the people trust your brand enough to join you also later on, and if you do the wrong things when something comes, then it's not that easy to build it back. And the competition is high. Yeah? But maybe coming back to the question. So first of all, as I said, people. So how do we ensure our people are safe, that we really move whoever is ready to the remote work, then how we set up the technology, because for some of the things were existing in company. Okay, Skype for business, so obvious, yeah, everyone does it, but like Teams, not used that much. Yeah, now extremely I would say used for in every location. So not only for us, but now it's a new gathering method for the people to meet, and in digital way. Then we decided, okay, as I said, we go on remote work, we put the technology to support the people, but what we do next? Yeah, do they need a mask? Do they need any kind of hygienic disinfection stuff? And we also have plans. So it's even, with the business sector, like admin work, you have a computer or laptop, you go home. In plant, that's not that easy. Yeah. So there was a really short break. Luckily, there were Easter holidays on the way, so we could use it, the time for the preparation, and we are back to the production, but really with the strong measures to ensure the people feel safe. Yeah, and they have a trust to you as employer that you really take care of them. So that was the message number 1, because we knew the people it's the greatest resource we have. Then the cash flow, as you said, yes. How do you ensure that you have money for the next 3, 4, 5 months, depending on the impact? And no one know still what it means. Yeah, we are as shared service center serving our internal clients. Okay, so we are safe, yeah, to some extent. But after 5 months, where the business is down, you know, it will come with some delay. So now it's like, think about it also on the company level, that we all contribute to the cash flow. The good thing at Miele is that we really are using our own funds. We are not stock listed. We are not having any liabilities, you know, any loans in the bank. We are really, I would say, healthy from the capital perspective. So it is building kind of good feeling in every of us that we are prepared to survive. Yeah. And the third topic was the costs. Yeah. Don't spend if you don't need to. Yeah. So for my office, it meant, if you ask me, for the time being, we started with the desks and the chairs, and then we were continuously building up what we need, but start with the basics.
And I would imagine, looking forwards, cost cutting, cost saving is going to be of paramount importance across the industry and across the region. Just how are you positioning, kind of, and what are you hearing from corporate HQ around that 12 to 18 month horizon in terms of cost saving? You know, are you going to have the original business case that was done for your center in Poznan? Are you now having to adjust that in any way? How are you, and if so, how?
I think, like I would say, the thing is that many things are not really coming as the direct instruction. Yeah, when you run the center and you run the business, you just think about it. Yeah, and you try to give as much possible as you can to support the company you're working for. Yeah. So I would say it's more kind of reflection now, also in my head, what to do to fit to the new reality. And one of my plans, or my thoughts, is that space cost is one of the second or the third cost in kind of category of the cost share service centers have. Yeah. First is people, but in many cases the second one is the office and all the kind of around cost for that. And having now all the people working remotely, having now really recruitment process going on perfectly, do I really need it that much? Is it something what we should change while planning the space for the future? Do I need the space I'm having now? Shall I change the working method maybe to kind of collaboration zones where you don't have your own desk, but you know you have this flexi desks concept? And by that, I think you are having a win-win, yeah, because to some extent people are, I would say, trained in working remotely. You see, they deliver, and to some extent they wish to work from home. Of course, they are willing to come back to the office too, as you said, the children and the school challenge, like homeschool. Then if we can make a perfect combination between this remote work and the space usage, why not? And for me, it means I can save some costs too, right?
So that's not necessarily something that your headquarters is telling you. You're trying to get ahead, you're trying to anticipate, and you're trying to come up with ideas to cut costs over the longer term. Exactly,
because I think for business services, not much has changed because we still, what is the aim of having shared service center? Yeah. Limit costs. So by default in your business case, you already have the challenges the same as everyone will have now. But I'm ready to that. Yeah, I'm ready to be efficient. I'm ready to automate the processes. I'm ready to think about kind of setup that gives a scale effect and all around. And I have it in my business case. I need to deliver some targets, and that won't change. Yeah, maybe I will be pushed more to deliver faster. That could be, but in essence, yeah, it stays as it was.
Yeah, and just to ask, so space, obviously, kind of making efficiencies with your space. What about in terms of headcount? Are you being asked to slow recruitment down at all? I mean, I know you mentioned that recruitment more broadly across the sector has really picked up. There was a couple of weeks where things froze, but from your own perspective, do you see over the next 12 months any messages coming from headquarters around, well, actually, let's go a bit slower with this, let's not hire so many people, let's see how things unfold? Is it, you sensing any of that, or are you anticipating anything along those lines?
Of course, it's just my anticipation. There's no message coming really, but I would say no. We do as we planned. We continue our path, and there's no reason to slow down. Yeah, you know, as I said, like the business case is there. The whole concept is positive. So what's the benefit of slowing down? There's none really. So we keep on going. What could be the impact is that, you know, if you are in the state of developing the center, as I said, this transition part is so essential. Yeah. So it depends how well it goes. Yeah. How I think it could be to some extent a bit slower. You cannot talk over Skype for 8 hours. Yeah, but normally you can do it when you sit next to someone. Yeah, so that's the obvious slowdown effect. But other than that, we go on. But if I look from my previous experience, when you run the stabilized SSC, you know, the shared service center existing for years and, you know, really not growing but just keeping the scale, I would say it would be a big push to bring more efficiency, and maybe even for those centers there would be a cut in the headcount, because if the operation goes down, the business goes down, you know, you will have less transactions, less things to do. So by default, you will go down. And in many cases, and I think it's fair, the contracts are that you pay for the transaction, yeah, as a customer, not for the head. And if before you had 10,000 transactions, postings or invoices, whatever, and now you have half of that, you know, then it is an impact. And I think this is coming. So there is such a close relation between, you know, shared service center and the business, but I would say the effect comes with delay.
Okay. And just to kind of switch gears to resilience and risk management, as a manufacturing company, I would imagine there's probably a lot of talk internally around, you know, resilience of supply chains and how obviously some industries and companies are, you know, with expansive supply chains are exposed to risk. And there's talk about how do we increase resilience to the supply chain. What messages, if any, are you getting from headquarters around the role that shared services or business services can play in terms of elevating the resilience of the organization moving forwards?
I think this is, if you think about, I would say, second level of the shared service center, I would put it this way, because I try to always split it into two. One is the simple cost cutting, you know, effect of scale, and maybe I would say more focused on the back office transactions. Yeah, and that's the first I would say effect you have while you set up the shared service center. But if you look for more, then you don't just look for this cost as first factor, like immediate cost cutting, but you think in the year's time. And shared service centers, in my opinion, business services, brings the added value to the company, which is agility. Yeah, you really think, and you have in your DNA the different way of working. You always ask yourself, do I really need to do it? Can I do it faster all the time? Yeah, it's like a mantra. it keeps on going and going. And if you see that there is such a strong I would say partner in the company who adapts that fast and is a kind of driver for the improvements, I think it's impacting the whole company. And this is the expectation, I would say, in front of me, that we bring this kind of agility to the company, that we show that you don't need to do the things for years to be good in that. That you don't need to, I would say, really, it's not a matter of time, it's a matter of kind of practice and the whole setup process. So you can take something what was done for years and you can do it faster and better. Yeah. And you are open to these changes, that is natural, that it comes. And with the plans and the supply chain, that I think this is interesting. And just side comment, I'm really waiting what happens with all the I would say plants impacted by the China lockdown. Yeah, so many companies realized that even though they produce in Europe, if they don't have a components, it's not that easy. Yeah, and I think in kind of purchasing area, I'm expecting a lot of move. And rethink a process, and also having kind of alternative suppliers and maybe close by suppliers that could be the connection to China was really in some cases too strong and too dangerous, and we never thought about it. It was flying. Yeah, so why should we? And that much cheaper. So, but now I think the risk has its value in money too.
So just on that note, how in anticipating that for your organization, how can you plan for that? What can you do in anticipation of that message that, you know, purchasing, procurement is going to change? How's that going to impact you, and what can you do to plan for that?
I think we are in that early stage that I cannot really see the real plans in that area. But in general, looking at the market, I would see more kind of these jobs would be centralized to some extent, but also the shared service centers would be used even in this kind of strategic buy areas, especially in the countries where the kind of with the labor arbitrage is still low. Yeah, that these people can look locally for different suppliers. Yeah. Because I think this is also the driving factor, that you find a good supplier, but also with the competitive prices. Yeah, I think not much can compete to China and you know, other offshore locations, but at least that you balance, yeah, between the costs and the risk. So I suppose this could be a topic for us, but not feeling yet, yeah, how it goes.
Okay, understood. That makes sense. And thank you for the questions that are coming in over the chat. So one question that's just come in is, do you feel that the current crisis will lead to Miele headquarters expecting more from your center? And if so, what will that look like?
Yeah, I think it would be expectation, especially, and I see it really, as I said, we are not just transferring the transactional stuff, and I will see, and I see it already, there is expectation from controlling, right, to give the right data, to prepare the right reports, to generate ad hoc reports, because I think this is a topic where I must say I'm not alone as a shared service center. I feel it's similar in other cases. Is that in these times you have I would say the headquarter is asking for more things to deliver, meaning the data. Yeah, the different reports, the different perspectives. And this is real challenge for the business, because I think you have a crisis, yeah, so the new setup, you have your business issues, and on the top, you need to deliver and feed the headquarter with more data. And this is the place where the shared service center could really support. And we also have a reporting factory part of what we are doing. And I expect here big expectation, but I think it's the huge development and the fast move expectation. We had our plan, but I think it needs to really speed up. We need to be ready to deliver good ad hoc data immediately, and in a kind of consequent way deliver what is expected, in the recurring mode.
That makes sense. And just on that data theme, so are you looking to hire data and analytics skills, specifically in some sort of scale in Poznan? Is that part of your first migration plan, is to hire those skill sets?
Yeah, I think it's I would say two ends. One is like a technical skill, so the people knowing, SAP Analytic Cloud or any other tools with data, I would say managing. Yeah, so that's the first component, and the second component, yes, the people who really can take the best of that what they have as a data. Yeah, so the data analysts.
Okay, and some more comments coming in. There's a point being made here around how the uptick in the labor market. At CEMA, there's been a lot of traffic in the last couple of weeks with shared services or business services organization looking to hire CEMA professionals. There are around 6,000 currently in Poland. Is this something that you're also planning to do in your center?
Yeah, of course, because there must be a right, I would say, component of the right skills. Yeah, and if you have a people with the proved skills, that's even easier. And especially for the center where you start, you really take the people with the background and experience and knowledge. Yes, and then you also add this component of the kind of fresh thinking and also graduates, but you put the foundation first, and this is where we are.
Okay, that makes sense. And we have a question from Shimon. I apologize for my Polish pronunciation if I'm butchering anyone's name here. Simon or Shimon's comment is around how the workflow from HQ at the moment, from the customers, internal customers, has really spiked in terms of activity. Do you think that kind of spike in activity is going to continue, or do you think it's going to taper off? What are your thoughts on that workflow?
Yeah, so exactly. I think now we are in this kind of more work zone. But as I said, I think for the stable transactional operations, if we already have them, there will be impact and there will be decrease, because if the crisis is, usually it goes down. On the other hand, I think the center should be ready to reskill the people, to move them to the different positions. So if they see they have less AP processing operations, could be less invoices, yeah. I think the center should have in mind how I can change the skills of my people so that I can use them in the different area. And here I'm also expecting these areas will come. Yeah. So on the one hand, we will see, at least that's my feeling, the squeeze of that what we were doing so far, expecting bigger efficiency and adjustment to the scale. On the other hand, there could be new options for shared service centers. And the challenge would be if we can switch or move the people to this new scope, or not?
Mm-hmm.
And in many, I think it's a big challenge, because it's, as someone mentioned here, it's more expert job. What will come? I think what was easy to outsource in many cases is already done.
Mm-hmm.
Now we will touch a bit more, I would say, unknown field where the different and very special skills might be expected.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a key, I think, a driver also in the message from shared service centers, how they treat the people, how they do the reskilling, and how they manage this kind of situation.
That makes sense. And we haven't really talked too much about automation, so we have to talk about that. Is there a drive, or has there been a drive for your organization as you get off the ground to heavily adopt automation, intelligent automation? What are your plans, and what's the messaging around that internally?
Yeah, so I think we go in this path with the way we first see if we need a task. So is it really needed? So that's the clear message or question we are asking ourselves. Is it something we wish to continue? So first is like this kind of optimization. Then if we see the task is needed, then we put the new process in, and it takes time. Because now we are looking into different processes, and we have our, I would say, design mode. So we would like to adjust it. And the first step would be how to automate it if it's not already automated. And we are heavily counting on SAP functionalities. We are using the system to really extreme way, and we keep on doing that. And only the things where we believe cannot be done or doesn't really make sense in the system, in ERP, we will do the robotization. But I think that's the last step. I think it's also not a secret message that if you automate the kind of shitty process, then it's not a real added value. You end up with the hundreds or many robots. You need to maintain them, and it's not making really sense. The sense is where you really did your homework before, and then the last part you just automate or robotize in the way it makes sense and brings the scale.
So is it fair to say that that there's not really too much that's changed in messaging from headquarters around automation? It's not like I've heard from some quarters, as part of for a number of reasons, with cost saving, whether it increased your business continuity.
Yes.
One of the likely outcomes will be an accelerated adoption of automation. Is there anything that around that you feel may be true?
Yeah, I think it's true, but as I said, we are kind of fresh, so we have it really on the table. It's something planned that we said, we want to have it, and this is the way forward. And as you say, it's not only from the cost perspective, but it's such a strong thinking about, as you said, business continuity. Its stability you cannot really underestimate with the robot. So what I think will change in my case is that I would need to do it fast. That maybe it was planned over the time, as I said, to do it in the right sequence, and it still remains. However, maybe I would need to complete each of the sequence faster. Okay. And I suppose this is the expectation. But what I see as a big, I would say, message in the business, is that kind of e-commerce and kind of sales, different channels of sales. And here I think a lot of companies would need to find the new way of doing it, because for the many brands, this kind of customer personal contact was really a key. And only then it was running in kind of more digital way, but the first interactions were usually done this way. How we will make the people to buy more premium stuff online.
Yeah.
Because bread and milk, it's not a problem. You just know what you buy. But if you buy things really from the premium segment, or the things you wish to really feel, then how you find the way to your customers now.
Yeah,
and this is, I think, a race.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because obviously those especially B2C companies that didn't have large e-commerce channels have had to make a very quick pivot to that, and those that already had those e-commerce channels have prospered during the crisis. What's kind of the situation with Miele? As you said, you're a premium brand, so it's perhaps more challenging to have everything automated from a sales process and everything online. So what's your kind of position on this at the moment?
Yeah, I think the times just shown to us that we really need to go this direction really fast. And I think it's not a matter of if we want it or not. Of course we do. It's a matter how fast we can adapt to the new reality, and if we can really speed it up, because we did it, we started, we have it, but how to make it really, yeah.
That could be a source of, if that's accelerated, which it sounds like it will be, then that could be a source of additional scope for your center, no?
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, that's this. But I would say everything what moves to the digital or kind of electronic way is always a chance. Yeah, so true.
Okay, all right. So just thinking about the future for a moment, if we can speculate on that. What's for your peers who are running centers across the region, what would you say to them? How would you advise them or encourage them in terms of managing the relationship with corporate HQ over the next 12 to 18 months? What kind of advice would you offer in terms of managing that relationship and trying to anticipate what's coming? Because everyone is so busy and preoccupied with survival, I guess, at the moment, and firefighting. What's on the role that others can play in managing their centers over the next 12 months?
Maybe I will also reflect to the previous experiences, because as I said, I was working before in outsourcing, and in many cases we had clients coming to us when they expected there is a crisis, So like there was a paper printing company, like paper producer, and they realized our business has changed. There are no newsprints printed that much. People are not printing out the materials, the documents. The crisis is coming for us, and there were many kind of, but it was not the whole world. It was just the sector, wise. And now when I look about that what is happening, I will have the same message what we did at the time with the customers. We were proactive, meaning we were always thinking what we can do more or what we can propose from our side. And for me it works. I'm not waiting for someone to tell me, do this and that. I'm sure it comes. So as with this Albert Einstein, I'm sure there will be something, and that's not a surprise. I'm just thinking what I can plan by myself. So whenever something different is coming from the headquarter, I can always discuss that I have this, and maybe this is a better solution, and I'm ready. I'm just not waiting for someone to raise my ideas and solve my problems, because I think it's the worst thing to do. And I think this is the same for our customers, for Miele entities, that every person is thinking locally as well, even though there are central message coming. But to be ready and to work in an efficient way, and the way you feel it's the best, is always to be prepared.
Okay. So proactivity and preparation are the name of the game. Okay. Anything else that you feel that others should do in terms of managing that relationship moving forwards?
I think, and this is also the good thing of such a kind of meetings we have now, right? And all the conferences and kind of communication channels that, frankly, I'm looking what the others are also doing. It's just why to reinvent the wheel, right? Maybe sometimes already the people have a ready idea and I can just grab it, and I'm doing it, of course. So that's really a great channel. And we are also part of ABSL activities, etc. You just also, I would say, brainstorm with others. So even though we are a competition looking for the people, attracting and so on, we all have the same aim in our mind, that we would like to be perceived as a good country to come in, as a good country to invest. And the stronger we are as a sector, as a business services, the better it looks. Yeah. And I really hope that giving the example that that in other SSC something came, or there was something more, I would say, given outsourced, then great. That's a great example. It could work, and I can use the example to show I can deliver the same. If it works there, it would work for me too, hopefully.
And we just had another question, Anna, from the audience. So this is from Piotr Glowacki. Again, apologies for my Polish pronunciation. So a question on Poland, and then same question on the broader Central European theatre. So do you think the COVID-19 crisis will accelerate or slow down the growth and maturity that's happening in the Polish business services industry?
Yeah, of course, it's a guessing. So I have no real data at hand to say it would be like that. But I think that I'm not sure about the headcount, as I said, as the crisis is coming, maybe in the headcount, like the whole sector will go down. But I agree, and I believe it, that this maturity, this is the future of the SSC, and more added value task and the different tasks. And I think it's because of two reasons. First of all, cost cutting. Secondly, giving this kind of flexibility and agility to the companies, that you can steer it much easier if you have it in kind of center, really open-minded for the changes. But as well, I do think that many SSCs proved it's working, and some of the SSCs or companies were just waiting. Yeah, they had no real pressure. And sometimes they had something to lose too. Yeah, and now, I think the priorities have changed, and many companies will be more brave to do these moves, because the situation is totally different, and this is how it's life. And I think in the whole development, of if we see the difficult times in kind of in the world history, it was always bringing something, as a positive result. Yeah. And frankly, I feel it's good to be in this business at this time, better than in the other.
I love your positivity, and I completely echo that. And again, just I guess to end on a positive and optimistic note, we've spoken a lot about messages coming from corporate HQ to the business services center. But what do you think that business services can teach the headquarters as we think through response to the crisis, and just more broadly, what do you think that business services can actually teach headquarters?
In my opinion, it would be that the change as a whole world, it could be something, I would say, negative and positive. And in my case, I believe we can teach that trying new things pays out, and that that we should try, or we should be more open to the new things coming in, and I would say that kind of find a balance between the kind of experience so far, but kind of I would say heritage the companies have. Okay, they were doing the things years long, but also be more open to the new, because it comes, and you just cannot stop it. So have a look at the shared service center as how fast you adapt to the changes, because every SSC, every good SSC, every good outsourcing partner, I think, is adapting fast, and this is the key of the success. So I would give, I hope this is something what is coming from our center, still new, so not yet proved track, but this is the real aim, that we prove that the things can run fast and we can adapt fast, and we should look around and gather the best on the market, and sometimes just change. And the technology, I would say, as I said, some things are obvious, but I would say switch and use the technology fully. It was easier to do the things how we were doing years back, but as we could see, it could work. We have a panel online, and I'm not sure, is it worse or is it better?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely echo what you say around, business services being sort of agent of change, being, especially, you're pretty much a startup. Okay, Miele is 121 years old, but your center is a startup, and that culture.
So imagine what they think,
Yeah, thanks. So that kind of seeing things with a fresh perspective, that new culture that you're instilling into your center, it can hopefully echo down to the mothership in Germany as well. Okay, great. So we're just pretty much at our allocated time. So thank you very much indeed, Anna. It's been a pleasure to talk to you this morning. I hope the audience out there enjoyed the session, and I wish you all a very good day. You can come see me at any point during the day. I'll be floating around the Location Perspectives booth.
In your living room.
In my living room, which come Location Perspectives booth. So I'll be happy to see you all there. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Yeah, thanks, Alex, so much. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Great. So thanks for the last session. It's 10:30. We're on time. We're going to stay to schedule. Thanks, first of all, for our main stage with Anna Meduna and Alex Ash. I appreciate those interesting insights there. And this breakout sessions with the Japan session. Very interesting comments from the Japanese SSEs, and as well as the back to work sessions with Newark offices and with Bpo Property and with Cushman & Wakefield. So it's 10:30, and we're on to the next, let's say, feature of the hop-in, which is perhaps one of my favorite ones. So we've got this virtual networking now. So if you'll virtual networking and visiting the booths, expo booths. So if you're on the hop-in screen now, the left-hand navigation bar, at the bottom of the left-hand navigation bar, you'll see two buttons. So the next to the last one is networking, and the one below that is the expo booth. So if you want to meet people, go to the networking session now. You'll then see a relatively blank screen. It'll ask you to start. You push the button start now. And as people pop into that networking session, you'll have a random generator. So every 3 minutes will be a new person. So it's a cool way to meet some new people in this market. Try that. In the meantime, there's also the expo, the booths. So this is where you can see our sponsors and other supporters who have streaming videos, other information sessions inside those. Worth your time. See you in the networking. I'm going to be in there too in a few minutes. So we'll be back at 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock, we're back on the main stage with Ali O'Donoghue from HFS Research out of London and Sarunas from Western Union, Vilnius, on digitalizing everything. And the breakout session at 11 o'clock is what? Oh, getting back to work. PWC, big issue right now, how people are getting back to the offices, issues with that. So networking sessions open. See you soon. Okay, so we're back. Thanks for all of you all who joined the networking sessions. Really interesting, fun way to meet some new people, and also for the virtual booths. And we had a live booth with Elias, which is a cool concept as well. Really nice. So we're back on main stage. So we have 11 o'clock on the main stage. Actually, the sessions now we got our critical issues for SSEs. First one on the main stage is digitalizing everything, which is led by Ali O'Donoghue from HFS Research and Sarunas from Western Union in Vilnius. Clearly, the last 2 months have made the urgency of digitalizing everything completely obvious. Where projects had been postponed, we can wait. Obviously, you can't wait, yeah? And so that's been an urgent change that's taken place inside the SSEs. And the other part is that the other session is getting back to work. So we have Lech Dombrovski from PWC, who is on that session, on the breakout session. So again, you've got your choices. After Dombrovski at 11:30, we have our Focus on Hungary session with 4 SSE directors from SSE and led by the moderators from the Hungarian Outsourcing Association, which is Ranki. Thanks to him. And then we're back here at 12:30. So again, choose your content, main stage, digitalizing everything, or pop into the back to work session, and we'll see you back here at 12:30. Thank you.
Hello everyone, and welcome to today's session. So my name's Ollie O'Donoghue. I'm a research analyst over at HFS Research. I've also got with me Sarunas from Western Union, who I'll be having a bit of a conversation with afterwards. But first off, I'm going to bore you all with an absolute ton of data. So apologies in advance. I'm like a child in a sweet shop when it comes to data. I've just piled in loads and loads of charts. I'll rattle through them as quickly as possible. And then we can have a decent conversation afterwards. First of all, I mean, we're going to be talking a lot about digital transformation. I just want to do a big shout out to Tom and the team. This is digital transformation, right? This was a physical event not that long ago, and now we've got a pretty engaged virtual event with great content. So congratulations, and I think we'll see a lot more of that as we rattle through this bizarre period that we're in. So here's the topic: digitalizing everything now. Before I start, I'll just give you a little bit of an intro to HFS. I don't like piling loads and loads of information and sales pitch and stuff at the front of slides. So here it is in a nutshell. Some of you may know us as HFS Horses for Sources. We've sort of stylized ourselves now as hyper-connected future state. And this is the lens that we look at the market through. So mainly through digital operations, we look at how digital change agents, things like artificial intelligence, integrated automation, smart analytics, and blockchain are impacting digital operations, and also global sourcing and digital business models. And there are some stats over on the other side there about our community, but I won't bore you too much with those bits and pieces. So let's get started. I always set the scene with a chart like this. Some of the data that you'll see today, and this is a caveat that comes through for the entire presentation, we did a lot of these surveys pre-COVID-19. So some of this data is ultra relevant. Some of this data is, could transform completely. Some of it will go right up the other end of the chart. And what I've tried to do is break the first half of this presentation into what we knew before, so sort of in the run up to December 2019, and what we're hearing afterwards. So now that we're going through this pandemic situation, how organizations are adapting. Now, this chart's particularly interesting because we asked organizations how digital transformation is fueling change in their enterprise. And we asked this question towards the end of 2018, start of 2019, and organizations by and large were feeling a little bit of change. 22% saying existential change, we're in serious trouble. 26% saying significant change, and a big bulk at the other end saying some change to no change. We asked them to anticipate that over 2 years, and we see a marked increase. So 27% are saying, actually, now we're the guys in trouble, we've got to change pretty quickly, and 31% see in that significant change category. Now, obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic changes this massively, and I suspect we'll see a lot fewer organizations sitting in that some change, little change, no change category, because we're all changing pretty rapidly as we go through this. And the crux here is what organizations are trying to do is move straight to digital. So this speed of change, it's accelerating. They're looking at traditional ways of sourcing work, and figuring out whether or not it moves fast enough, or whether or not they can go straight to digital and implement things like automation, cloudify, integrate, make processes more efficient. And we're seeing more of that accelerate as we go through this pandemic period. Now, when we look at their digital shopping list, this is what it translates to. So that ambition of going straight to digital, this is how it kind of manifests when organizations look at what they're going to buy and do over the next year to 2 years. Now, in 2019, we saw things like RPA. 2019 was really the year for RPA, you know, huge investment for organizations there. Some of those really big companies started accelerating their growth. We're seeing cloud, IoT, and a lot of technologies like that. By 2020, AI and some of those higher end automation technologies are moving further and further up that shopping list. And these are organizations that expect to make significant investments in these technologies. But here's the crux, because you know, anyone with a well-resourced credit card can go out and buy some AI. We can all go to AWS and buy some more cloud if we want to. No one's going to stop us. But when it comes to actually making some sort of business value out of those technologies, it becomes pretty tricky. And what we're seeing more and more, again, in the run-up to the pandemic, there's a few interesting stories from enterprises around this piece, is organizational culture, specifically a change-averse business culture, is holding them back. And what tends to happen when change accelerates is people naturally put the brakes on things. So when we're looking at doing straight to digital transformation, we're doing these big jumps where we're going to automate loads of stuff and cloudify loads of stuff. Those brakes start coming on pretty quickly. The context of that now is that in a global pandemic, this has changed. This change of disappeared. I'll tell you a really quick story. So an executive I spoke to about a month ago came to us and said, look, pandemic aside and all of the tragic details that come with that, this is actually a really good time to be a CIO. We had packets of change version, loads of people saying, look, you can't cloudify and modernize that application. It's core to our business. We can't risk it. And now they're going, get that in the cloud and get accessibility on as quickly as you can. So they have these really elaborate transformation programs that they had pegged for 3, 4, 5 years that they're now trying to condense in 3 to 6 months. You know, it's becoming this burning platform that they're trying to put forward. But outside of cultural change and business change aversion, there's this one big characteristic, and it's something that should resonate with everyone in the audience right now, from business services centers, outsourcers, enterprises. It's that lack of in-house talent. That's effectively what this market's about, is helping each other access talent. 20% of organizations put lack of in-house talent and their ability to attract talent and develop that talent as the biggest thing holding their enterprise back from achieving digital transformation objectives. They look for people like partners. They look for tapping into talent hotspots in Europe, in US that they haven't tapped into before to overcome that challenge. And it's above even things like uncertainty about financial investment and things like that you would think would cause a little bit more uncertainty for executives. And in the run-up to COVID-19, and bearing in mind we're in a period of unprecedented, and we've been told not to use that word by HFS because we're bored of it, but it is unprecedented instability when it comes to labour pools. Organisations are anticipating a huge amount of major change to internal roles, either as a result of automation, those internal talent wars, as they try and find, you know, those small pockets of data scientists and look at other areas of work that they're going to automate entirely. 17% expected half of their internal roles to change over the next 2 years in the run-up, in effect, to 2020. So there's this huge amount of change to internal roles and what they were going to do in terms of sourcing that activity in the run-up to COVID-19 that's going to be exacerbated by the pandemic situation. And this is how that translates for our market. So in the run-up to 2020, enterprises planned major shifts in sourcing business services as they were going forward. So either because their existing contract wasn't fast enough, it wasn't moving quickly enough, they wanted to automate, they wanted to try new technologies. Perhaps their outsourcer or their shared service center didn't have the skills that they wanted, that they knew that they needed over the next 2 years, so they were looking to change that arrangement. What became clear between 2018, 2019 and the run-up to 2020 is that a lot of these traditional sourcing models were coming under a lot of pressure from enterprises for what real value they added. So look at outsourcing as it moves into 2019. Significant decreases from enterprises in their appetite to consider outsourcing. Shared services and centralized internal delivery have a bit of an easier time, but even then those models are coming under scrutiny from enterprises. They try and figure out, is this the model that's going to deliver us what we need to survive this period of existential change that we're going through? And for contracts in our space, what this translates to is less than a quarter of these are safe in effect. So, and only 23% enterprises saying, look, we're going to stick with our outsourcer, we're going to stick with what we're doing now. A huge bucket of others saying, look, we're going to automate this, we're going to insource it, we might change provider because this one's not moving fast enough, or we'll renew the contract, but we're going to push them on things like embedding automation, embedding digital practices, embedding new ways of bringing talent in through crowdsourcing or gig economy or something like that to help change that. So there's a huge amount of change already impacting the services market. And in raw numbers, and again, with this slide, this is one with a big caveat around COVID-19. So this is some of our market data, but as we approach 2020, $36 billion worth of outsourcing contracts are up for renewal in 2020, with some organizations looking at bringing that in-house, changing providers, sticking with the same one, but forcing them to do other things. So like embed digital practices or automation. 6 billion of that, around that, is from the UK and France. So a lot of that's sitting on the EU's doorstep, which is relevant because Europe as a whole, and I put this data in here because this is an event focused on Europe, but Europe as a whole has a much healthier appetite for outsourcing, particularly pre-COVID, and I suspect that's going to accelerate over the next year or so as organizations look to diversify their sourcing strategy, but far healthier appetite than areas like the US when it comes to outsourcing. So a third of organizations looking to increase spend by more than 5% in the run up to 2020, and 39% between 1% and 5%. So bucking that trend that we saw in the earlier slide of outsourcing losing its mojo in effect. And here's the key point: is executives in Europe looking for nearshore and onshore partners to help them deliver this work. They want that closeness with their partners. They want to be able to build a real partner. When it comes to technology, they want to be able to do agile practices, so be in a similar time zone, which is challenging. Agile as a practice is quite challenging over big time zones in multiple locations, and this is something that enterprises are pushing forward. So I'll push past this one. Let's jump into the really cool data before we open up to the chat, and do ask questions as we go along, by the way, guys, because we should have plenty of time to talk through those questions. But here's the data that we've got since COVID-19 impacted. So we've got two surveys running at the moment. This first one here are the results of people's initial feelings around COVID-19. So what they were doing, how they were trying to deal with the situation. We also have another one out in the field right now to see what those longer term practices are. So that'll be an interesting space to watch. But here's the gist, and I think a lot of people know this. So this is what shifted the way we worked over the last 3 months. So organizations banned in-person meetings, they mandated work from home, whether that's because the state told them to or they did it themselves for well-being. That effectively is universal now for a lot of organizations when non-essential staff are working from home. And in effect, it means that organizations need to completely rethink their operating model, and particularly some of the technologies that they embed in that operating model as they go forward. Now, when we ask service providers what they're being asked, so services partners across the board, what they're being asked by enterprises, it's the following buckets. They want help restructuring internal operations to survive the turmoil. That's a huge one, seeing major increases there. Helping move workflow solutions to remote working environments, digitizing existing processes, designing new ways of operating in the environment. These are the things that are on the top of enterprise leaders' minds. These are the problems that they want solved by their partners. So a lot of the provider community in the audience here, this is the type of questions that a lot of you will be getting right now. It seems pretty universal, and it comes with its benefits. So more work in an uncertain period is always good. I think business services teams right now are under a huge amount of pressure to deliver against a lot of this stuff. I'm an ex-IT service desk guy, and there's not a minute where I don't think about the type of work that those guys will have been doing over the last 2 to 3 months to keep the wheels on the bus. And here's the big point. So this is how investment intentions have shifted. So we had that nice chart at the start where there's fairly balanced investment across the board, from really cool technologies, those new shiny things like blockchain, edge computing, all of that good stuff, and the core technologies like clouds and infrastructure services. What we've seen in the market is pretty clear. Cybersecurity, automation, cloud, those core technologies are getting a big boost in spending as organizations try and bring accessibility and security. Security being a huge area right now. Surface area for a lot of organizations was one nice big office in the middle of London somewhere, and now suddenly it's 8,000 offices all over the place. And we're less investment in those glitzy technologies. So things like edge computing, AI, and blockchain, we're seeing a shrinking investment, but by and large, organizations are putting a pause on these initiatives right now, these kind of straight to digital investment splurges that we've seen over the last 2 years are sort of being pushed back on the back burner a little bit as they try and figure out, do we need to save money right now to give us a little bit more financial runway and certainty? And do we need to push some of that money into things like cloud, cybersecurity, AI, all of those other bits and pieces that might give us some sort of competitive advantage, or at least paper over some of those cracks with this new remote working operating model that we've got to run through. And the big thing driving a lot of these motivations right now is simple. So organizations aren't clear whether their IT infrastructure, whether their operating model, whether they have the support resources in place to manage the wellness of teams, whether they can source the necessary equipment. That was a big one in the early days. Laptops and hotspots became a premium in a lot of cities. And they're trying to solve these problems now. These are relatively short-term challenges. I think a lot of organizations by now will have solved most of these. They will have spun up VPNs, they will have spun up SaaS solutions. There'll be a bigger piece of work for the IT services firms in the audience here, which is helping their clients unpick this mess. So a lot of I think it was the first keynote mentioned that enterprises using Skype, Zoom, just about everything, Teams, we're all using this kind of collage of different remote working solutions to get things done. We're spinning up VPNs to give people access across the board. If we do return back to the office and there is some sort of normality coming back to the piece, then someone's got to unpick this mess and rationalize it somehow. So I expect a huge bucket of work to come to the IT services firms when looking at that piece. And here's just that look at the two critical technologies, the two big investment pieces that we're seeing right now in core IT services, which is cybersecurity and hybrid cloud, but also a bit of IT network infrastructure rationalization. The interesting piece with this graph is that we stacked up what providers think they'll see and what enterprises think they'll spend. And in a surprising twist, providers are a little bit more optimistic about how much money is going to flow in their direction than enterprises. But even so, we're seeing pretty strong growth in these areas, given that it's quite a big revenue base to begin with. And just the last two slides before I finish this barrage of data. Here's an interesting piece, and again, this one I included because we'll be figuring this out in our second survey, so stay tuned for that one. My gut feel is there's a lot of optimism in the market right now amongst enterprises and providers. When we ask them, do you have the equipment, the resources, the structures, the processes you need to handle this working from home, flexible working environment at scale? A huge portion of them said, yeah, we've got enough, or we just need to spend a little bit of money. Realistically, I think they were looking at the short term. The reality is we don't know how long we'll be in some form of working through this operating model. It could be years, frankly. There's no way of knowing. And I think we'll probably see a lot more organizations nudge over into that. We need a great deal of additional investment. And here's how that plays out in short term to long term. So in the short term, we've seen a lot of organizations pump money into network provision, security, better personal computing, those core short-term issues that we needed to solve. But actually, when we look at the long-term, things like replatforming and migrating applications to the cloud, less appetite there. And I suspect we'll see that move as a much bigger piece of work for providers and enterprises alike to figure out, alongside other things like rationalizing SaaS environments and cloud environments. So that's my barrage of data. Now let's see how that's translating in the real world. So I'd like to bring on Shrunesh from Western Union. Shrunesh, you with us?
Yes, I am. Thanks, Oli. Great presentation and lots of good insights.
It's yeah, too much. I always do this. I fall into the same trap every time of just doing way too much data. It's like, I've got to have it all quickly. There's actually more, if you can believe it. We've got a ton of the stuff, so we can always chat afterwards. So look, Western Union, big multinational company. You must be in an interesting position in that you're in that financial services space, but you've also got this huge kind of sprawled network and operations that you've kind of got to figure out how this new world operates across boundaries and across borders. So how have you seen the COVID-19 pandemic? Let's just jump straight in with the COVID-19 stuff, right? How have you seen that impact how you go to business? How has that impacted you and your team?
Great question. Western Union is a global money transfer leader doing business in 200 countries, territories, truly, global business, and I'm today calling from Vilnius, Lithuania, Global Business Service Center of Western Union Company, 2,000 people, 60 plus different functions. And basically, I would make a parallel of unprecedented situation in the world with a storm. I think all the companies today sit in their own boats and they are in the middle of a storm and they are trying to figure out how to exit the storm with a minimal impact. But on the flip side, with probably some of the capabilities which would allow companies to be stronger. So that's how we see the situation today. And from that standpoint, basically, we have been thinking what we can do today to enable our business in terms of supporting Western Union customers and their needs, which might be changing because some of the countries took approaches and they went on lockdowns. So how to shift that from retail business into digital world, from customer service standpoint. So we were thinking what we can do very quickly to support customer needs, but at the same time, we were thinking what we can do long term so that we can, be stronger when we basically exit that situation. At Western Union, I am representing European Regional Operations Center, and we have also sister sites in Philippines, in Costa Rica, in some other countries as well. And one of the critical things during this period of time was basically collaboration among all of these centers. When there was a need to support each other, we quickly were able to reskill workforce. When there was a new initiative for a particular country, we quickly were able to build those SWAT teams who can quickly, jump and create products and small capabilities which supported customers in these particular countries. So I would say number one critical aspect was basically collaboration and partnership. Second, we continue to work on automation. We do believe that the future is the combination between human workforce and digital workforce. So how can we combine humans with, let's say, robots and maximize automation effort, which, at the end of the day could benefit end customer because customer service is more frictionless, and also benefit us and global business services because we can do more with less. So we also continue on that focus, and we did much during this pandemic situation to accelerate automation at Western Union shared service centers.
And in the run up to the pandemic, because obviously no one could really predict what was going on. Although if you've seen the film Contagion, it is frighteningly prophetic. In the run-up, were you investing in digital? So I guess one of the things that we've seen over the last, let's say, 3 months, is people really condense their move to digital technology. So embracing things like automation, embracing things like cloud, looking at their processes and going, do you know what? This hasn't been right for a long time. Let's just now and get it sorted. So have you seen that appetite in your organization condense as a result of the pandemic, or has it been, because we're hearing two things? Some organizations are saying, look, we've got enough to worry about. We've got to make sure everyone can work from home and be productive and they're safe and happy. Let's do that first. And then we're hearing from other organizations where they're saying, look, this is the time for us to completely transform our operations. And we're going to need this to be competitive as we go forward. So have you seen that condense? Which kind of side of the fence are you guys sitting on, or are you trying to manage both pieces?
I would say the second one. We have always thinking about digitalization, which was part of today's reality in the society, which also drives particular behaviors for our customers. So we always thought how to address customer needs, and I think that was the main fuel for us to kick this digitalization journey. On other hand, indeed, during very short period of time, Vilnius, Western Union, Global Business Service had to basically prepare themselves to work from home. But that exercise took a week or two. And it was, I would say, pretty easy one. And today we all work from home and we are able to support Western Union customers. So that also tells us that probably there is no work which cannot be done from home, comparing to some pre-COVID thoughts when corporates were talking that, hey, there are certain type of jobs which cannot be insourced or outsourced, while this pandemic showed that probably this wasn't that much truth. So that would be my short answer, Oli.
Perfect. And I mean, when it comes to your priorities list over the next let's say 6 months, and obviously I'm being unfair really here because you haven't got a crystal ball in front of you, and no one really knows what's going on now, let alone what's going on by the end of the year. But has your priorities list changed? Like, what's your vision for the future of your business services center over the next 9 months? Because it strikes me that as more work can be done remote, it really opens up global talent pools in a way that hasn't happened before. You don't need to be in a city. You can tap into talent pools across a nation state, across boundaries, which will make it a really interesting time for you guys, specifically when it comes to trying to tap into some of those core talent, which in some places is hard to come about. So how has that impacted your approach, or is it a wait and see approach right now because there's too much going on?
It's a combination of both. I would say number one is we have built the plan of coming back to office, which includes basically of 3 different stages. And second major one, what I mentioned at the very beginning, was how can we continuously drive automation, so we can have both digital and human workforce working together to really deliver the optimal service to end customers. So for coming back to office approach, we basically build based on 3 phases. Phase number 1 is open door policy. Phase number 2, basically partial workforce coming back to office and working partially from home, partially from the office. And then the third one is the new norm of working, which would come into effect basically after COVID-19 situation. So open the door, number 1 approach of coming back to office basically addresses those needs of the people who really would like to come back to office because maybe they are emotionally tired working from home, or maybe there are some other reasons and they really want to come back to office and do the work from office. We recently ran a survey, and what was very fascinating, that 50% of the people said they would like to continue to work from home. 47% of the people said they would like to have a flexibility of work arrangements, partially work from home and partially work from office. And then only 3% of the workforce population said they would like to work only from office. So that's fascinating, and that signals some of the thoughts we need to think about in terms of the future. Second phase, which we are working, and probably that approach of we come back to office, we would implement after the quarantine regime is over in the country of Lithuania, is a partial comeback to office with a proper social distance, physical distance, again with opportunity for people to work partially from home, partially from office, and that would be also a mix of voluntary comeback versus not. And then the third, the new norm of working in office in corporate environment. This is something which we have been discussing at the moment, and which would be in place in the long future. And that new norm, it's hard to predict today what it would look like. Some of the companies like Amazon, they have already in certain countries issued vouchers for their employees to, of course, purchase through Amazon stores some stuff in order to establish their work offices at home. Some of the companies announced that they're planning to come back to office only next year, and that probably raises the questions. that if before COVID-19 situation, working from home was a benefit, maybe after COVID-19 situation, work from office will suddenly become a benefit, you know. So these kind of things we continue to discuss internally, and when the phase 3 will come, the new norm, probably we'll have something to share, you know, with ourselves and our workforce population. And then the second big piece, which I also touch base on, is combination of digital workforce with a human workforce. So we continue to work on that strategy, which basically an idea parallel I could make here comes from chess world. You know, in 1986, I think, famous chess player Garry Kasparov played against IBM machine computer, and he won. A couple years later, actually, he lost to a computer. Today, after 30 years, a period of time, even more, you know, anyone can download an application in mobile app and can play chess against computer or Garry Kasparov, and they can win very easily, you know. So from that analog, basically, you can think that robot alone or human alone is not superior. The superior power is combination of robot and human. So we continue to work on automation very much. We are relying on many technologies available in the market, and what we do, we basically take into a process. We deconstruct process into process steps, and we try to apply various techniques in order to automate these steps, so we can maximize both great customer experience, but also greater process efficiency and greater even employee satisfaction, because employees can invest more on stuff which is not that much repetitive. So we would definitely continue with that.
And so I mean, I think the remote thing. So we over here at HFS company. So a few of us work from home. We've got a bit of an office. So my world hasn't changed that much, with the exception of now I just don't leave the house at all. So you know, I'm different. But for a lot of organisations, this was a huge change management piece and an ongoing change management piece. But let's change track a bit. And I should just quickly mention, please do ask questions as we go along. We should have a few minutes at the end, towards the end, and if there's some really good ones, we'll ask them as we go along here. But when I spoke to business services leaders, let's say over 2 months, maybe a month after the pandemic, when things really started to hit home, the workloads that they had to deal with were phenomenal. You know, absolutely huge workloads, volumes coming in for just about everything, not just IT teams, everyone. There was that uncertainty, and in an uncertain world, people tend to lean on internal business services. They lean on them and ask them for help. And one of the things we saw people do afterwards, and they'd done it a bit beforehand, was implement automation technologies like you've mentioned. So they would do things like put chatbots in. It would give their team breathing room, necessary breathing room, because they were worked, you know, to a point where they're almost well-being concerns. Now, the challenge with doing that is you're not necessarily doing it in the right environment long term. So you're doing it kind of quickly to solve a specific challenge, which is, you know, absolutely fine. But when it comes to scaling that up long term, there you hit road bumps because the processes aren't kind of optimized or anything like that. So I guess I have two questions. The first one is, if I was to put you on the spot, which investment in the run up to the pandemic did you make that you were most grateful for afterwards? And the reason I asked is because there are some organizations I've spoken to who just happened to implement a very clever chatbot before the pandemic that suddenly was just in its element and they could use really well, and it was, you know, it was something that they could kind of lean back on when workload spiked. So is there anything that you kind of did beforehand where you sit down and think, you know, it's really, thank God we did that, you know, otherwise we'd have so much work?
I would say straightforward OCR, optical character recognition, because in our business, we have processes related to no customer data, KYC process, and you know, with pandemics, with country lockdowns, you have to think how to recreate the process which could become completely digital, and that's where OCR came into play, because OCR can read those IDs, passport copies, or other data from supporting documentation, and that really, I would say, paid off and was a smart investment.
Cool. And how are you working now to make sure that those investments that you made, and perhaps some of the investments that you've done over the 2-3 months under the pandemic, because we all had to do it, right? We all had to go and buy Teams or Zoom or whatever it is, amongst other things, to make sure things were working. So how are you working to make sure that the stuff that works stays, the stuff that isn't quite working but should stay is optimized, and the stuff that you don't need anymore goes? Because that must be a huge piece of work now.
It is. On the other hand, it was always the case for Western Union company, because we have many offices globally. And for example, on automation effort, we work very closely with colleagues in Costa Rica. So we sort of got used from the past to run these sessions virtually and basically drive automation no matter where you sit or from what parts of the globe you work. However, working in office and sitting in a conference room, that's one, while people dialing in from their work from their homes into virtual sessions and trying to address various issues and problems, and these people sometimes are even from different cultures, different geographies. So that little challenge, which we have spotted, definitely we are able to overcome by two different let's say learnings or aspects we put in place. Number one is common language, and number two is basically ability for us to work as a team. So let me start with a common language. I just remembered a story which comes probably from early 90s with South Korean Airlines, Air Korea, and at that time we had a significantly high comparing to the industry average number of crashes. And after some investigation, root cause was found that there is a miscommunication between captain, pilot, and second pilot in the cabin during these sensitive periods of time. So Air Korea, they basically made the decision to basically ask captains to speak in English with a straightforward language, during these maybe tough situations, and that actually was a reason why these damages and crashes in the industry with